Hello class, it's Professor Streeter, and in this video we're going to look at some of the themes from week 5 and look at the content in the week 5 module, and then look ahead a little bit to week 6 and the homework assignment that I shared with you in an email today. All right, egoism and altruism, that is the theme of our readings from Schaefer-Landau's The Fundamentals of Ethics. In chapter 7, he focuses on the thesis of psychological egoism, which is the idea that when we act, we are always motivated by the desire to benefit ourselves or the desire to promote our own self-interest, that is deep down the only motive that gets us all the way to action. That is a way of denying that we are ever motivated by altruism. Right? The altruism is a different motive. If I'm acting altruistically, I'm motivated by a desire to benefit other people or a desire to promote the interests of others. And so the psychological egoist is arguing that that's not really possible, that there is no such motive, or another way of saying it is that altruistic motives don't really motivate us. We sometimes appear to be acting out of a desire to benefit others, but that's always concealing, right, a more fundamental egoistic desire to promote our own interests. And so that's the view, and the psychological egoist has arguments to defend that view, but Schaefer-Landau looks at problems with those arguments. He thinks those are not very good arguments. And so he thinks that psychological egoism is, in the end, a hard position to defend, but you can judge that for yourself. Chapter 8 then turns to what's called ethical egoism, which is a view about the value of our motives, not just an empirical or factual claim about how we actually act, but a claim about how we should act. And so the ethical egoist will say that, look, even if we are capable of altruism at some level, we shouldn't side with that part of ourselves, or we shouldn't strive to be more altruistic. We should always act in our own self-interest, right? We should always act in such a way that we are promoting our own good or benefiting ourselves. That should be the guiding principle in what we do. It's a moral claim. The problem with ethical egoism is it seems to conflict with our conventional views about morality, right? That sometimes we have a responsibility to other people that gives us a reason to restrict our own self-interest. And the ethical egoist seems like they're denying that we should never do that. We should never sacrifice our own interests for the sake of the interests of others. That conflicts with many moral intuitions that we have, which is why Schaefer-Landau spends so much time here. Both the psychological egoist and the ethical egoist sort of threaten our traditional views about morality, or the very idea that we have responsibilities to other people. It seems like we do, but the egoist argues that we don't really. Ultimately, from an egoistic perspective, the only responsibility that we have is to ourselves. And so think about the problems with that view. One problem with that view is it has no way of explaining the morality of climate change, and that's the topic of Broom's essay. Here's the kind of context, right? On a daily basis, we consume a lot of goods. We're a very consumerist society. The more goods we consume, the more greenhouse gas emissions we make. And the more greenhouse gas we emit into the atmosphere, the more harm we do to the planet and the more harm we do to individual people, both people living today and future generations of people. So it seems like our actions, our self-interested actions, are harming lots of people, reducing the quality of their lives, reducing the length of their lives as a result of consuming more goods and producing more greenhouse gas. So there's a direct link there. And it's not clear that we can explain from an egoistic perspective why I should do anything about it, or why I should feel some kind of moral responsibility there, because the harm that's being done is not to me, but to others. And I benefit, in some sense, from consuming more goods, or at least I have convinced myself of that. But it seems like we want to say we do have a responsibility to address those harms. We do have a responsibility to other people, to future people. That's an interesting idea. We have a responsibility to future people. How best to explain that? And that's the task of Broom's essay. Okay, so coming down here, I've shared some videos with you again. You can, if you click here, that takes you to the slideshow and the week 5 videos. Okay, and so in addition to reading chapter 7 and 8 and Broom, you can watch those videos. There's a weekly discussion, and the weekly discussion, sorry, let me present this as a student. Excuse me. So the weekly discussion, if you click here, it gives you a case of Jones, and there's 2 parts. I think some of you posted earlier in the week where I just had the first part. I added the second part. It's the example of Jones. Jones is someone who has no interests. So you can read this on your own. But he has one desire. He has one interest, right? He wants to be happy. That's the only thing he wants. He wants to promote his own self-interest, his own happiness. That's the only thing he cares about. But he doesn't have any other particular interests. The potential problem here that a guy named Feinberg, who came up with this thought experiment, identifies is that it seems like the paradox is that if there's only one thing that Jones is interested in, call it happiness, his own happiness, it doesn't seem like he can get it. And that seems like a problem. So think about that question. Is it really possible for Jones under this description to be happy, to satisfy his one and all consuming desire? Why or why not? Explain your reasoning. And then think for the second part about the implications of this Jones thought experiment for psychological egoism. Again, I've got a description of the psychological egoist's main claim, that our actions are always motivated by self-interest or by a desire for our own happiness. That's Jones. It's his only desire. So everything he does is motivated by that. That's kind of what the egoist is saying. And that we are incapable of being motivated purely by the interest of others. That's the second part of the egoist thesis, or the desire for someone else's happiness. So thinking about Jones, right, or what you think of Jones, what implications does that have for the egoist? In particular, does this thought experiment demonstrate that psychological egoism must be false? And that to be rational is to desire something other than your own happiness. I mean, not that you don't desire your own happiness, but there need to be other things that you desire as well, right? It's irrational to only desire your own happiness. Is that what this thought experiment shows? That there's something wrong with psychological egoism? Why or why not? Or another way to put it, does the Jones thought experiment support the conclusion that at least some of our actions must be motivated by purely altruistic desires, by a desire for someone else's happiness? Or is that what's missing from Jones's life, that he doesn't have any altruistic motives? Okay. So that's the discussion for this week, and you can post that in by the end of the week. Coming back to here, we have the essay rough draft is due this week, so you can submit that to this folder. If you click here, that will take you to the Turnitin folder, and you can upload your submission here. Okay. And that, again, for the rough draft, you've got the introduction. I've shared some comments. Let me put myself up here. I've shared some comments in the other folder, in the introduction folder. I've shared some comments about your introduction. If I saw big problems, I would let you know. I'll continue to share more comments this week, but you can look at the grade you earned and my comments on your introduction as you begin drafting the more complete draft. And there, go from your introduction and develop the thesis more. Move to the body paragraphs. Begin to give a close reading of something from the text. That's something I saw a lot of in your introductions. There weren't enough references to what we're reading. So it's in the body paragraphs where you really want to bring in a more detailed analysis of something we've read for the course as a way of supporting your argument, and move toward a conclusion. Like, what's the conclusion that you're moving toward? Try to get as far as you can into the essay and to turn that in as a draft this week. Okay? And then there's a quiz 3 on the Enoch essay. If you click here, there's 15 questions. Why I am an objectivist about ethics. That's chapter 18 of The Ethical Life. Again, you have 2 chances to take this. I believe you have an hour to do it. So there's 15 questions. And they track the argument that David Enoch is making in his essay on objectivity, or why he's an objectivist about ethics. Okay. Okay. So that's for this week. Those are the assignments for this week. And you can scroll down and see them all here, the description. If we go to week 6, this is where I've included the homework assignment for next week. So let me just click it here. If you click the homework assignment in week 6, it takes you here, and there's a template. So what I want you to do for the homework assignment is to choose one of these readings. So I've given you a list of 6 readings. I don't care which one you choose, right? John Broome is what we read for this week. We started earlier in the semester looking at Chris Heathwood's article. There's a lot to choose from. And the goal here is to construct a reading outline of one of these readings. I think this will help you as you write your essay, because part of the task for writing your essay is analyzing something that you've read. So if you can really break down the argument in one of these essays, I think that will help you. First of all, you'll get homework credit, but it'll also help you prepare for doing the hard analysis in your own writing. Now, I would encourage you to choose an essay that you're writing about, right? So that will, because then it will really help you develop your own argument in your essay. But you don't have to, right? I'm not sure which of these essays you feel most comfortable with, so choose the one that you feel most comfortable with. What is the reading outline? Well, here's the template. You click this template, and then you click up here, and there's a Word document. Think of it as two stages. And the first read, the first stage, let me see if I can make this bigger. Well, on the first stage, you're skimming the article. So what do I mean by skimming? You're reading the introductory paragraph, the first and last sentence of each body paragraph, and then you read the concluding paragraph. Based on your skim, your first read, you should be able to answer these questions. So write down a sentence or two. What's the central claim that you see in the article based on your skim? What are some key concepts or principles or assumptions that you think are being employed in the argument? Write those down. What's the main line of reasoning that supports the thesis? Write down some sentences that capture that in your own words. And what's the main conclusion? Okay, so based on the skim, on the first read, you should be able to answer these basic questions, breaking down the central claim, the key concepts, the main line of reasoning, and the conclusion. That's the skim. So you can use this template. You can type your answers directly into this template that you have. You can create your own template. So you don't have to use this one, but these are the questions to use to answer. Then on the second read, okay, I want you to break it down paragraph by paragraph or section by section. So go into your book, right? And you got your book. Number the sections that you think break the essay down into sections. And then so write the number of the section in the margin. And then here, this is going to be the number 1. This is section or paragraph 1. And next to each number, write a sentence that states the main point of the paragraph or the main point of that section of the essay. Maybe you want to chunk together 3 paragraphs into one section. Okay, so what was the main point of that section? Or you could break it down into paragraphs. And then a second sentence that explains how that paragraph relates to the main argument. Okay, or the function or purpose of the paragraph in the essay as a whole. So go through as much as you can for one of these 6 readings. So coming back here, we're running out of time here, but one of these 6 readings, and use the template to analyze and break down the argument. Okay, so that's it.